Yeah, so what we're doing is we're examining the potential economic impacts of large language models. So the central question is basically, well, it's fairly personally motivated because I would like to know if I'll have a job in a year. Lucky for us, we might hang on a little bit longer because we're all studying AI. But anyway, so the central question is, how will automation from natural language processing change the short-term world? I guess I kind of ran out of space, but sure. Okay, that's a pretty big question. Okay, the paper that I'm going to be primarily looking at is called GPTs or GPTs. Andre thought this was a stupid name. I think it is stupid. What it means is something, what's the G stand for? Generative pre-trained transformers are general purpose technologies is what it's supposed to be saying. Yeah, so here we go. The methodology of this paper is, there's a lot of different ways that you can look at economic impact. So what they did was they got some amount of people. They don't say how many. I think that's suspicious, but I'll talk about that later. And they say, okay, rank the exposure of the tasks for lots of occupations that are listed on this database. Okay. That are listed. So there's a bunch of tasks that are listed on the database, or occupations, and each occupation has a bunch of tasks associated. It's just like made by some economics people that care about jobs. It's a database. I don't know much else about it. I could show you in the paper, like it has description, it has a job and it has like a task, and the task has a description, and it's just like curated like that, and it's got lots of them. It also has like data somewhere, but I didn't look at it. So, and then they ask the human people, okay, rank the exposure to like LLMs for each one of these tasks for each one of these occupations. They also did this, and they gave the same prompt to GPT-4, and they said like rank the exposure. And the reason they did that, I think, is twofold. A, it's like this meta point about like, oh, you can even automate like the research we're doing with LLMs, which is kind of but then I think the second point is just like you can kind of use GPT-4 like an aggregation of like common sense or like what a lot of people believe. And since they did not tell us how many human raters they used, this is kind of like a, oh, look, other people kind of agree with us too. Okay, and then they use this handcrafted rubric to describe like what does it mean to be exposed, for a job to be exposed to an LLM. Okay, so we'll go into that more. So this is the exposure rubric. So they're asking the question specifically like, are more than 50% of the tasks that this occupation has to do, could they be sped up by using an LLM without decreasing the quality of the work? So it's really just like a yes or no, like subjective question. That's it. It's really simple. If they say yes to at least 50% of the tasks in an occupation, then they classify that as E1 exposure. And then they ask the same question, but of LLM plus, which is like an LLM. It's like GPT-4. It's going to have, it's going to be able to do like image generation, multimodal access, that kind of stuff. So that if somebody thinks that like an LLM plus could automate at least 50% of the tasks or do them faster, then that's like E2. And if neither of those things, or if the quality decreases, or if it can't be sped up by at least 50%, it's E0.
So they asked humans to judge whether or not different jobs were in exposure.
Yes.
Did people have backgrounds in what LLMs could do?
Yes. They said specific. They don't say what type of people. Okay, wait. The next. Oh, okay. Okay, so I just said all that. Limitations. Okay, they do not say how many human raters are used. They don't say who they are. They say that they do have understanding of how LLMs work and familiarity with them. It makes me think that this is probably like a group of 5 people, and it's probably the authors of this paper that did this. I'm gonna assume that that's the case since they don't tell us. And if they wanted me to think otherwise, they should have told me. And then, yeah, but I do think that they also use like GPT-4, which does, in my opinion, increase like the credibility of this a bit. Because it's, you know, at least aggregating a lot more diverse data. To make
It's why does it matter what GPT-4 has to say about its other models' abilities to do things? Like, there's no reasoning there. It's auto.
Because it's just like it's like a big index into the internet. It's kind of like saying like, oh, look, other people on the internet agree with me, right?
Kind of, sort of, doesn't really matter.
Okay, moving on. And then they also only use data from the United States, or like in terms of like occupations. They do use some actual data, which I'll show you later, about like how many workers are in each field and stuff like that. That all comes from just the United States. Just because it was easier for them to do that.
Also, did you see where was Sam Altman one of the writers?
No.
Or okay.
We can go back and look at
they
who
were
they
all
were.
OpenAI, right? Is that
Oh, let me check.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know who they are, but they're at OpenAI and the University of Pennsylvania, apparently. Okay, so despite the really big flaws with this methodology, in my opinion, being that it's like pretty subjective and there's not very many people rating this. And oh, one other thing I did not mention is that is a pretty big flaw, is that these people that are rating these occupations didn't ever hold these jobs, right? So they will not have like a really good knowledge of the things that they're rating. So it's like me rating how hard it is to be like a construction worker or something, right? But using that same example, like if I were to rate how well an LLM could do a construction worker, I still feel pretty confident that like an LLM cannot do the job of a construction worker. So regardless of some of the flaws of the subjectivity of this, there's like some pretty clear and obvious truisms that can be deduced and then aggregated from doing a lot of this ranking. And I think that those are still informative. Yes, okay. So, okay, findings. So this is a graph that you cannot read at all.
Oh, thanks.
You're welcome. I'll just maybe, no, actually I won't. Forget it. I could like zoom in on it later, but for now it's fine. Basically, like this is like data processing input or something, and then this is, I don't remember. These are like construction workers, carpentry, stuff like that. These are more exposed, those are less exposed. Whatever. This is kind of just to show you how many different occupations they ranked, and then within each of those occupations, there's a bunch of tasks. So it's pretty like comprehensive, I would say, or pretty widespread.
The scale of this side.
The scale of the side is industry average LLM exposure. So that's like, this is like over 50%.
And that's 0.5 right there at the bottom.
Yeah.
0.4. Okay.
Yeah.
How much of this is just like how physical work is?
I will show you. Okay, but here's some key findings in just like a nutshell. More education correlates strongly to having a higher exposure to LLMs. About a fifth of the jobs have more than 50% of the tasks exposed to LLMs. About 80% of the jobs have at least 20% exposed. So like a lot of them have a little exposed, and a little of them have a lot exposed. And then the average is about 15% of tasks within an occupation are directly exposed. Okay, so the more education correlates strongly to higher exposure. This also shows like higher wage jobs correlate to more exposure. But yeah, that's all I have to say about that. That's just what they found. Here's like a little sample of some like, okay, so here I should explain. So they have 3 different forms of the rating. They have like the alpha rating. I think that's delta. So that a delta.
The second one,
This one. That's beta.
that's it.
That's zeta?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, okay, so they have alpha, beta, and zeta ratings. The alpha is gonna be okay, so they had do you remember the E1 and the E2 exposures? Okay, so the alpha is gonna be just what percent is exposed to E1, so just LLMs, not LLMs plus other stuff. Beta is gonna be basically like a lower bound on how much is exposed to LLMs or LLMs plus. They just did some like weighting, so they added the exposure to LLMs plus 50% of the exposure to LLMs plus. So it's just like a lower bound. And then this is going to be the upper bound. So this is going to be like the maximum exposure to like LLMs and LLMs plus. Okay, so then they have like the human ratings and then they have the model ratings. So model being GPT-4. And you can just like cursory look through this and see, okay, like math is pretty high by like all standards. Research, like authors, translators, specialists, public relations specialists. I just think it's kind of interesting to read through it. And then it also is interesting because in the LLMs and the LLMs plus, like the Zeta rating for GPT-4, it rated 86 occupations as fully exposed. So it's pretty confident in itself. But also humans, okay, humans comparatively labeled 15 as fully exposed. So that's still pretty high. And then this little snippet is just saying, okay, science and critical thinking are less exposed. Programming and writing are a lot more exposed, right? These are things that are pretty like intuitive, I would say, but you know, it's just kind of to hit home, like, I don't know, this is like for real gonna change some stuff.
Well, they hit home that an anonymous group of people think that some jobs will be exposed. It's a survey result, but they don't tell us who those survey people are.
I mean, yes, but like my personal belief that I said earlier is that like these are basically truisms. Like when you see an LLM write a poem, you can probably assume that you can automate poetry if you can't distinguish that poem from a human written poem.
Okay, well then there needs to be addressed though in the paper. They can't just claim that like it's a survey result.
They're not claiming anything. I mean, they're saying their survey results. I'm claiming like it's a truism, and so like if you want to disagree with that, that's fine. But that's my claim.
Okay.
Okay, and then here's the thing about the income. So they were saying more education is and higher wages, because those two things are pretty tightly coupled, both increase exposure. So like for the just LLMs, it's still pretty low exposure. For the like lower bound, it's like 50%, and then for the upper bound, it's like pretty high. Yep. And then yeah, so I think it's just kind of interesting. And then you can also see like the total number of employed people. So that's like just in the US, that's a shit ton of employed people. That's like close to half the labor force. I think I did the calculations at some point.
Wait, where?
So these are the number of total employed people, and then in the thousands. So that's going to be like 57 million, and that's going to be like
That's in the thousands.
yeah. So that's going to be 57 million total, and then that's going to be 21 million total.
This is only US?
Yeah. And so in the US, the labor force is like 160 million people. So that's going to be a big chunk of it. As you can imagine, there's a lot of people with bachelor's degrees and master's degrees. Okay, so then just to show you like a overview of the things that are not exposed, here are your future career choices. Stonemason, dishwasher, Alec,
Right.
Uh,
I feel like we've already kind of, I mean, there's a dishwasher, which is not.
that's true, but who's gonna put them in the dishwasher?
You make an excellent point. I
Me.
could be the guy, oh, okay, never mind.
You?
You already got that one covered.
Oh, okay, you can pick a different one. Okay. Yeah,
So would they say like, I would expect something like a mechanical engineer to be here or something. Or can you?
no exposure.
Yeah, or, well, not, no, okay, yeah, I guess, but I'd say those are kind of lower. Cause like. A lot, like LLMs aren't at the point where they can like CAD something.
Right.
But a lot of like mechanical engineer job isn't just
Yeah.
CAD, right?
True,
You're like
yeah.
writing up shit for different things.
Maybe like, yeah, like analyzing, like.
And I mean, an STL file is code.
It's code, yeah.
So they can turn all of that into code and feed it to the LLM. So I don't know, but you have a point. That's like, go ahead.
Yeah, he has to like in a job for in the summer, he's an ME major, he has to like. Do stuff with like CADs and like. Basically give the instructions to a machine on what to do, and he's like. These LLMs can't do it, but like, maybe we could train an AI to do it, or like a model to do it. But basically saying they can't do it yet, so.
I would say, like, in my personal opinion, like, because it's just code and you can like, I'll show you if we have time at the end, I'll show you guys this video of this guy presenting some of GPT-4, and it's kind of cracked.
So is GPT-4 like out?
Just
Like,
for
Yeah.
the bourgeoisie.
My brother pays for it. He's like reliant on it now, it's funny. But like. It doesn't like feel that different, I don't know. It's just
No,
more
I'll
powerful.
show you.
GPT.
I'll show you.
It's just like better.
It's really
I've
good.
seen examples, it is a lot better.
I see.
Yeah,
In anything specifically or just in general?
reasoning, visual things, anything visual. So like CAD, it would be,
Oh,
probably,
okay.
I'm not saying that it could like CAD something. I don't think it
Actually,
could,
I'll ask my brother for it.
but it would
But
be
there
better.
are basically systems like Dolly, which work for 3D models.
Let's see.
Um,
I see, yeah, because this is just.
So it doesn't need to be an LLM. Like this paper specifically has to do with LLMs, but
Yeah, okay.
like all jobs
Yeah,
are just, or not all jobs, but like any job that you sit in front of a computer for is highly susceptible, I would say.
I would agree with that. Okay. Now if you want a second opinion, and you want to go to the GPT-4 technical report, they're pretty laconic and vague about the economic impacts, but they do say that over time, this could result in workforce displacement. So that's what they say. And then they don't really say anything else. They're not like, oh, well, this is how we fix it. They're just like, it's gonna happen probably.
people will ban this. If the government will try to ban it or something.
The EU might, we won't. That's what I think.
Um,
I moved here.
Yeah, Italy. We'll see. We can discuss.
money at stake.
We can discuss at the end. Okay. Here's my key takeaways. Capitalism cannot deal with the automation of cognition, and neither can our education system, which is going to be about dishwashing soon. You should drop out and learn a trade. The Luddite revolution is coming, and the GPU farms are cranking out heat. So even if the robots don't get us, Mother Nature will. And that's Danny DeVito as the Lorax crawling out of a couch. And I tried to put that prompt into Dolly, and it was really disturbing. So you're lucky I didn't put those up here. All right. Here's my real key takeaways. This field is moving too fast to predict precise economic outcomes. And this paper certainly cannot do that. But I do think that it's pretty evident that their basic claims that, the jobs that are associated with more education, they're all sitting in front of a computer and they're all pretty exposed. and job training. What is, I don't know. I don't remember what I meant by that. Anyway, just like cognitive labor, things that you can do while you're sitting down and looking at data, that's changing. And then for the majority of occupations, they would say that LLMs are still mostly augmentations, since like not more than like 50% of most occupations have tasks. Not most occupations do not have more than 50% of tasks that are exposed to LLMs. So it's for the majority of occupations, it's still an augmentation, but I would say, and they would say that for a non-trivial minority, LLMs can completely automate the occupation. So that's all I have. Do we want to watch some? I'll show you guys the GPT-4 stuff. Okay. Shit's fucking crazy. So this guy, I don't know. He works.
Hello, everyone.
Oh, really?
At where?
He's gonna speak next week.
Yeah, next Tuesday.
Where?
CSE2. Check
Oh.
CSE.
Yes.
What day?
Tuesday.
What time? Oh, bet. Perfect.
What time?
3:30.
Skip your class.
I can't. I have those participation points.
Skip your class.
Come on, man. Then you, what day?
The GPT is gonna automate philosophy anyway, dude. It doesn't matter. All right, let's see. I'm gonna skip most of this.
Two elements that arrive at me, then I think you have to call GPT-4 intelligent. Now, how do we come to this assessment? The point is, the whole point is, of course, you cannot make this assessment with benchmarks. It's completely meaningless.
I can't make
okay?
it full screen.
And not only is it meaningless, but also we don't know what GPT-4 was trained on. I don't know what GPT-4 was
It don't work.
trained on. My working assumption is that it was trained on all, the data.
You guys are picky.
Like the button.
What?
I clicked F.
Hello, everyone.
Oh, just dude, go to YouTube.
I clicked the button. Okay. It was in presentation mode. It didn't work. Okay.
Yeah, presentation.
Okay. So here's
Before, I know,
Cut
just
to
to
the
be
point.
clever.
writing a proof.
So at that point, at the add one, just to be clever, I remember, end of September, I was like, what's going on? This is really incredible. I mean, the quality of this is incredible. But the point is you don't stop there. Okay, you don't test intelligence by asking a question, hearing the answer, and that's it, you move on. Either you are correct or not correct. When you try to test a student, you have an interaction with the student. Sometimes the student might also make mistakes, and you don't just say, you really don't understand anything, let me stop right there. No, you try to guide the student. Okay, so this is what we're gonna try to do, throughout the presentation. We're gonna try to keep, asking questions, and if GPT-4 goes off track, we're gonna help it a little bit. Okay, so let's see how we can go further. And again, the whole point is that I want to be creative and go, ask questions out of the box. So what I'm gonna ask is to draw an illustration of this proof. So, but it's not a visual proof, So if I ask you to draw a proof of the, infinitude of primes, it's not clear, what you would draw. You would come up with something, but it's not clear. Also, it's not supposed to output images. So how is it going to draw? Well, here I say it in the question, in SVG format. I could have even not said in SVG format. I could have just said, can you draw an illustration? And then it would have responded by, hey, here is the picture in SVG format. So what is SVG format? Doesn't matter, scalable vector graphics. It's a bunch of code. So it's going to answer with, lines of code like this. This is going to be the answer of GPT-4. And if you just, save it in HTML, this is the picture that you get. Okay, so it's not amazing by any means, but it is the essence of what this proof is about. You have the finite list of primes that you have up to 9, 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, and so on and so forth. These are primes, okay, good. Now you combine them to a new number n, and then you add 1, just to be clever, as it said. Okay, and this new n plus 1, this is the number that is supposed to be a prime. Okay, so this was just a warm-up. Okay, let's move on and try to dig a little bit deeper on these vision capabilities. And here I want to tell you about the strange case of the unicorn, which is kind of my favorite example. So
it draws a unicorn,
so let's
but
very abstract unicorn. And just to be clear, so that you
This
really
was
understand
ChatGPT.
visually, it's clear to you the TXZ code that was produced. Okay? I'm going to remove all the comments on the website and plug in my picture, lots of comments, but the horn is missing. Can you add it back? Yes, in some benchmark with you understands you. This thing is, but eventually.
Okay, so like there was, I don't know, ChatGPT, GPT-4, I don't know. It got better.
It started to degrade. Once I started to train for more safety, the unicorn started to degrade.
yeah.
So if tonight,
And then the training for safety thing is the other thing he says multiple times is like it makes it worse on many metrics.
you go home and you ask GPT,
like all the stuff that makes it say, I am an LLM and I can't answer this question, blah, blah, blah. Like that kind of thing. Like, don't let it tell you how to build a bomb, that stuff. Yeah, on just like normal things, like drawing it.
He found, I mean, of course, people have found ways to get around it, but he found like a specific, I think Carter told it to him, like a specific prompt, and you can just ask it to like bypass.
I feel like they've fixed most of those, because when I try them recently, it does not work. But I don't know. I think they've been, personally, I think they've trained it a lot more since when it like first came out.
GPT-4 in ChatGPT to draw a unicorn in TXT, you're going to get something that doesn't look great. Okay, that's closer to ChatGPT. And this do the thing that you ask. You ask it, a car next to a coffee cup on the right of a coffee cup, and the light blue one is a defender, which is trying to get between the.
Okay, so it made a like JavaScript game, like just with those instructions, and it's kind of fucking crazy. I could not make that game.
The red ball and the dark blue ball. So this movie is me, controlling the dark blue ball. You see, the defender is doing a good job. It's stopping the red ball. Okay, so this is really, for us, there is a kind of phase transition in coding at this point. And really, what happens is that Codex, and GitHub Copilot, it was able to autocomplete. Really, you should have thought of it as autocomplete, short snippets of code. ChatGPT, it's already next level. It can already write, 50 lines of code for you. But GPT-4, it can write 500 to 1,000 lines of code, fully, works, zero shot, there is no, meta prompting or anything. This all works, out of the box. Okay. So this is really, I think, what, coding with a Copilot unlocks. And here, I'm showing in these two animations. On the left is the code that ChatGPT produces, and on the right is the code that GPT-4 produces. And if you look at it carefully, you will see that GPT-4's code is much more expert level. Now, the catch is, or the twist on this slide is that those two videos were produced by GPT-4. So what I did is that I asked GPT-4 to produce a Python script that takes as input a text file and outputs, a video like this with, you see, you understand this is moving continuously. I mean, this would take a lot of time. Certainly, for me, it would take me forever to produce those videos. And the question is, who in this room would be able to produce a Python script, let's say in a couple of hours that would produce this? Maybe a few people, but not that many. Okay, so this is really the power of GPT-4, how it unlocks so many things, so much creativity is unlocked by GPT-4. I will go quickly just on this slide. We had it pass interviews, mock interviews at Amazon and Google, not Microsoft, and it passed. Not only did it pass, but it beats 100% of the human users. And you see, for this particular one, there were 2 hours allocated, and it did it in 3 minutes and 59 seconds. It took that long because he was copy pasting between the playground and the mock interview website. Okay, so this is really I think it's fair to say it's superhuman coding. Okay, so let me move on to affordances and very quickly over affordances, because I want to tell you about mathematics, which is something that will be of interest to many people. Problem is, it still has many weaknesses. Of course, it doesn't have memory. Who is the president of the US, Donald Trump? What is the the square root of the product of those two numbers? It says 1,000. It's clearly not 1,000. It's 9,000. So it makes arithmetic mistakes. What is the certain letter of this word? It says N. The right answer is A. It makes mistakes. It's not perfect. Okay, this is something very important for everybody to understand. It's far from perfect. Okay, it's flawed, like a human is flawed. So. But the point is, it's intelligent enough to use tools. So you can tell it, hey, you know what? You have access to a search engine, you have access to a calculator, you have access to this API. I just say it's character, parentheses. You have access to all those things. If you need them, please use them. So then to the question, who is the president of the US? He will not answer. He will say search. He will tell you, okay, I need to search this information. What is the square root of this? It will say calc. What is the certain letter of this word? It will say character of the word, comma 13. Okay, so the comma 13, I didn't tell it you have to do comma, the number of the letters that you want, but it will find it automatically. Now, maybe it's not that impressive, but it can also do much more complex tools. So for example, you can give it access to your calendar, to your email. Okay, so here, what I'm going to show you on this slide is 100% real, but I did it manually, but you can very easily, imagine automating this. So what I said is, please set up, dinner with Joe and Luke at Contoso restaurant this week. It says, it responds, this is its response, calendar.get events week. So it searches in my calendar for what events I have for this week. It sends an email to Joe, okay, email.send, hey Joe, dinner, which nights are available. Then I feed it back the answer, okay, which Joe says, on Tuesday and Wednesday night is available. Luke says any day from Monday to Thursday. And in my calendar, it says that I have plans for Monday and Tuesday. Then it reasons over this, inputs that I gave it, and it gets the answer. Okay, Wednesday is a day. So, let me send an email to Joe. Let me add the event to the calendar, and also let me send the reservation to the, restaurant. This is all, it can do that, all of this automatically, and it comes back to you and says, I scheduled dinner at 6 p.m. at Contoso restaurant. Okay, so let me very quickly, just 5 more minutes. Yeah, okay. Let me quickly conclude with mathematics, because of course it's a topic of great interest to many of us. And let me say right away, it's not great at mathematics. Okay, so don't worry, we still have a job for now. Okay. But it's interesting. It's interesting. So let's have a conversation. Just as I was telling you earlier, we're going to have a conversation like we would have with a student. And I'm not, we have conversation with it at the master level, roughly, and it can hold its own at that level. But I'm going to show you, a level of like middle school or something like that. So Let's go with this problem. Within the duration of a year, a rabbit population first multiplies itself by a factor A, and on the last day, B rabbits are taken for adoption. Suppose that on the first day of the first year, there are X rabbits, and let's say that we know after 3 years that there are exactly 27X minus 26 rabbits. What are the values of A and B? Okay, typical kind of middle school, question. Let's call the rabbit population after 1 year Y. We know that Y is equal to AX minus B. After 2 years, the population will be AY minus B, which is A times AX minus B minus B, which is blah, blah, blah. After 3 years, the population will be this equation. We're given that this is equal to 27X minus 26, so the equation must be this, and it modifies the question itself. So suppose that, not suppose.
Okay, so then he starts to like look for fucking a way to, he's like, can you do this as a polynomial, like, blah, blah, blah. And the answer is no. Or like, okay, first it finds, it can formulate it as a.
I point out that, this question can be alternatively formulated about a composition, Can you provide this compositional formulation? And it says, yes, we could say that we're looking for values of A.
But then he asks, can you do this as like a polynomial of degree 2? And then that would end up being a polynomial of degree 8. So like, because it's a composed function, so you can't do it. But it just makes some bullshit up, and it says it can. So right, so this is where it's making shit up. And then he's like correcting it, saying, wait, that doesn't make sense.
Arithmetic is still shaky. I have to say I don't fully understand, but I understand something which I will explain to you on this slide. The polynomial of degree 2, then
it corrects itself.
The composition 3 times is the polynomial of degree 8, so there is no such function. Okay, so here you see how it's delicate. It's not clear. Does it understand? Does it not understand? I'm not sure. Okay, I'm just not sure, and this is all I will say. Now there are some weird things, like the fact that the arithmetic is still shaky. I have to say I don't fully understand, but I understand something which I will explain to you on this slide. So let's look at this. I give it as a prompt, 7 times 4 plus 8 times 8. Okay, I don't know what is the value of this, but 8 times 8 is 60 something, 7 times 4, 20 something. So at the very least, this is below 100. Okay, good. It says 120. This is wrong, flat out wrong. Okay, but the point is it doesn't stop there. It continues, it starts to explain why it thinks it's 120. 7 times 4 plus 8 times 8, it does the calculation, and then it gets to the correct answer, 92. Okay, wait, what's going on? You started by saying 120. Which one is it? Is it 120 or 92? Ah, that was a typo, sorry. Okay. So there is a lot of insight that you can draw from this slide, actually. You can really understand everything I think that's happening. So the first answer is the 120. You understand that it has to do this using only internal representation. Using only its internal representation, it has to do, this addition. And this is slightly more difficult. Then, why does it answer immediately? It's because when you ask a question like this, you write this equation, you write equal, the most likely thing that happens after is to give a number. So it gives you the number. It tries to give you what is the most likely thing to appear after. It tries, but it fails. But then what is the second most likely thing after that is, people explain their, rational, their answer. So then it tries to explain its answer. And what is amazing is that it gets at a different answer. And you have to understand that it's amazing because, as far as I know, this is a transformer. So it's attention-based. So when it's attention-based, you understand that when it's saying the second time, 7 times 4 plus 8 times 8, its attention brings it very strongly to the 120 answer. The 120 answer, you have to understand, it's part of its truth now. For all it knows, it could be that you have told it, hey, you know what, 7 times 4 plus 8 times 8 is 120 from now on. It could have been part of my prompt. So the fact that it gets to a different answer means that it has been trained enough to overcome mistakes in its prompt. So this is a very, very strong property. The fact that it's able to get to the right answer despite making a mistake at the beginning. Now, of course, when it says this was a typo, this is also very interesting because this is bullshit. Obviously, it's not a typo, And this gets to, the hallucination and, many, many interesting topics. And, I want to take some time for questions, so I don't want to explain more about this. But this slide, really, you have to think about it, deeply. It says a lot. So the last slide, before moving to the conclusion, is the fact that it cannot do true planning. And again, you will be, I have been amazed by so many tasks that you can do where I thought it would require true planning, but actually it doesn't. But let me give you one example where we continue this discussion with 7 times 4 plus 8 times 8. So, okay, great. So now you have this identity, which is equal to 92. And let me ask a funny question. Can you modify exactly one integer on the left-hand side of this equation so that the answer becomes 106? So as a human being, what is your reasoning? Your reasoning is like this. Okay, I want 106 on the right-hand side. So I need to increase by 14. Okay, I need to increase by 14 and I can modify only one number on the left. 14, I look at the left, I see a 7, and then I have this kind of eureka moment. You see 14 is 7 times 2. Okay, so if it's 7 times 2, then I need to turn this 4 into a 6. Okay, so what I said is just this. It needs, to turn this 4 into a 6. But you see this eureka that I had, even though it's extremely simple, it was through some kind of planning. I was thinking ahead about what I'm going to need. And GPT-4 cannot do that because it's a next world prediction device. So what it's going to do is it's going to say, there are a few possible ways to do it, blah, blah, blah. And then it says, I can modify exactly one integer. I'm going to modify the 7 into a 9. I do 9 times 4, and this is equal to 106. Wait, what? If I modify the 7 to a 9, I add an 8, so this is 100, the answer, not 106. And then it tries to explain why this works. 9 times 4 plus 8 times 8, it's 36 plus 64. That's correct. But then again, it says 106. So you see here, it was not strong enough to overcome its initial mistakes. And this to me points to the fact that if it was trained further, maybe it would correct itself. And if it was trained even further, maybe it would understand that even though the most likely thing, when there is a question, 7 times 4 plus 8 times 8 equals most likely answer is a number, maybe if it's trained more, you understand that the best way to answer this is to first do the reasoning. So what I'm saying here is that through this stupid example, what I see is that with more training, we're going to unlock a lot more than what we currently have. What we currently have is already amazing, but it's far from everything we can do with this technique. There is a lot more, on the horizon. Okay, so let me conclude. Is GPT-4 intelligent, and also does it matter? This is a really important question. So again, is GPT-4 intelligent? It really depends on your definition. I leave it up to you. I'm not making a call whether it's intelligent or not. As far as I'm concerned, in terms of my definition of intelligence, yes, it is intelligent. Now, it's lacking memory. It cannot do real-time learning. If this is your definition, then it's not intelligent. It cannot, think several steps in advance. It cannot do real planning. If that's your definition, then it's not intelligent. But on the other hand, some of those behaviors I think that I showed you, they're really impressive. And maybe more importantly than impressive, they are useful. We in my team, we all use GPT-4 every day. Like it's part of our workflow. So this mere fact, just intelligence. And maybe the answer to that study will be exactly, this new thing, you shouldn't call it intelligence because it doesn't do X. That's a very plausible, conclusion. But maybe more importantly is what I said, that there is so much more that you can extract from this. So GPT-4.
Okay, there you go. That's GPT-4. So that is all that I have, but I do have some discussion questions. Oh, thank you. I do have some discussion questions if you would like to discuss, but thoughts? How about this, Andre? What do you think? Are you persuaded?
No.
What?
I don't know. I just know that Andre is not persuaded of anything.
What would you say no to? What was the interaction about? I feel like neither of you were asking or answering.
It's just no.
Okay.
The thing is, I found that paper very dubious in terms of what you can actually conclude from it. I don't think you can conclude very much from it. If you can conclude anything, I think we can conclude that AI practitioners have a strong, possibly inflated sense of what the real economic impacts of AI are, and also AI tends to think highly of itself. I don't think it really tells us anything of substance about what actually happens, and I would be interested in a paper which actually does a serious, let's say, economic analysis. I mean, something that is that
Go ahead.
all we do is we ask AI people what will happen. I don't see very many studies actually try to take a genuine, authentic look at what the discipline itself entails. And at a certain point, it's not a problem which can be relegated to AI researchers, right? You have to bring in, economists, you have to bring in artists, you have to bring in philosophers, because these are questions that don't just happen. Like, they're not just in purely the domain of AI. The thing trying to pretend that they are is dishonest in certain ways. On the other hand, I think that jobs are going to change, but like they always have. Look at the .com revolution. Like things totally changed. And I think things are always changing. Do I think it's going to be like extraordinarily revolutionary? I don't really know, and my opinion doesn't matter, but I don't really see it at this point. On the other hand, I do think that GPT can do a lot of things, and it definitely will increase productivity in various ways. But is it going to fundamentally restructure the economy? I feel in an analogous way to maybe how the .com bubble did things.
Okay, wait. So I have to at least address the parts that you said that about doubting the study, because there's some things that I did not show. So they did an analysis doing across. There's many other people have done analyses of how much economic impact will AI have. Not a lot of people have done LLMs, and nobody's done LLMs using ChatGPT except for this paper, or the best technology available. So, but nevertheless, there's lots of other people that have done economic AI analyses, and they have very different techniques. And the techniques that I read about were much more reputable, or first of all, they're much more diverse. So that in itself is gonna, if all the diverse things agree, it's gonna be much more convincing. But one of the ones that I remember, one of the methodologies that I remember was they go to the ONET database, they look at the words that are described in the task, and then they, I think, have somebody describe like what the AI is doing, and then they like correlate those things. So anyway, there's just like much very different methods. And then this is not it. Okay, so then they looked at these different papers and then tried to like compare their study with it. And so I didn't show it because it's very hard for me to understand it because I haven't read all these other papers. So I don't, like, if you ask me like what is AI web, I don't know. And what are these numbers like representing? I don't know. So that's why I didn't include it, but they did this. And then they did find that there's significant variance with their method, but it's like 20 to 40% unexplained variance, which could be explained by the fact that this is a different technology than they had access to. LLMs are a lot better now. Or it could be explained by like bad methodology, blah, blah, blah. So that's the thing. What do you think, Alec?
I think, I don't know, I mean, I understand a little bit what Andre's saying, like, maybe the methodology was the best, but I feel, I mean, the overarching idea, which is just like, a lot of jobs are susceptible to automation. I think still quite clearly like runs through, like is true. Do you think that's true?
Well, it depends, like, can you be more specific, like what types of jobs, what can you give examples?
Well, specifically, like Chaytan was saying, high wage jobs that are like educated and people like cognitive tasks.
That's so broad, like,
Okay,
Yeah,
here,
I-
let me pull up the slide, Andre. I have a whole fucking,
Like has broad applications, right?
what can you, like, one
Those
example,
ones.
talk about it? Okay, well, let's pick an example.
Okay.
translator, first one.
Translator.
Okay, translate.
So do you think that that's a job that's susceptible to automation in like the near future?
Well, the translating industry right now, like,
Let's pick a different one with that employs more people. Let's pick a different one than.
sure, I would say no, though, for translating.
Blockchain engineers.
Okay, let's not pick that one.
Okay,
I wouldn't if they got it.
Web designers, graphic designers.
that's a good one, yeah.
Graphic designers.
Yeah,
They can be very easily automated with not specifically LLMs, but more so Dolly and also LLMs writing code for website. Actually, I think I saw one of the examples that they had ChatGPT-4 was like they fed it an image of just like, this is what they just drew out like, this is what I want my website to look like. They just drew out the layout and then ChatGPT, you know, like all the code necessary to display it and run it. So you just completely cut out, you know, a web developer from the equation, right?
Yeah.
So that's susceptible. That's a job that's highly susceptible to automation, right?
I actually think jobs will change, but I don't think they'll go out fully.
So I also don't think they're gonna go out fully. But you don't need to change. You don't need to change that many jobs. The unemployment rate during the Great Depression was, I don't know, like
25%,
25%?
15% average.
what?
15% average across like the decade and 25 at the peak.
Right. And you know that was really, really bad.
It was
If
pretty
you
bad.
automate, you know, and I forget the number, but like, and you don't need to fully automate jobs to remove workers, right? If you increase everyone's productivity by 20%, then you need 20% less people, right? Yeah.
Under a capitalist system, that's probably how that works, yeah. That's the there.
you're saying this
No,
increased
it's it has nothing to do with capitalism.
No, it does. Like if you're a communist and you don't really like care how hard people work, you're just gonna, you know, give people jobs. It doesn't matter how efficient they are, then it's different. But
Okay, well,
if you're incentivized to
Okay.
make the most profit, then you would cut the jobs when you have more productivity.
Okay, sure. Well, my point is to get the same amount of work done, you need 20% less people. And if, you know, a lot of jobs aren't necessarily automated, but productivity goes up and you need less people to do the same amount, then that's gonna lead to layoffs, even if the job's not fully automated, right? Andre?
Yeah, sure.
So there is some amount at least of,
Yeah.
and we can argue the extent of that, but I think it's at least enough to worry about potentially. Would you agree?
What do you mean by worry about?
Worry about the state of our economy after a lot of automation. Because the problem is, you know, it's some people draw the analogy to like the Industrial Revolution, and like we automated a lot of physical labor, and then we moved to better jobs, right? We moved to cognitive labor, right? More so, right? And I think, you know, people are saying, well, we'll find more jobs and new jobs and better jobs. And I just am unconvinced that there are that many new jobs that are going to be like useful.
If you ask someone in the Industrial Revolution, like, is there a need for what's a job that just didn't exist back then?
Web designer.
A web designer, yeah, that's a good example, yeah, they'd be like, you first have to explain like the web, then a computer, and then like go from there, right? But like, I think this will actually, I think that's a great analogy. I think this will open up, like, there might be some weird transition period.
That
Like,
was-
by weird, like a pretty bad recession.
Yeah.
But like, I think we could like afterwards, there's a possibility that this will unlock more for us.
There's a possibility.
It's kind of like, I see it also like the pandemic too. Like some people got lazier, some people worked harder, some people were unaffected, a lot of people were affected, but like nothing changed that like crazily. Like we're still living our day-to-day lives, you know. It's not like the world's falling.
I'm not sure about the pandemic, but I think it's a disanalogy from the Industrial Revolution, because like,
Wait, can I clarify some things?
yeah, sure.
First of all, okay. I think you can look to the Industrial Revolution for, I think it's fair. Like, I agree with the idea. Like, there's a possibility that it does unlock more jobs. I agree with that. But how strong is that possibility? I don't think there's a strong possibility. The thing I want to clarify though is that studies on the Industrial Revolution have found that the jobs that were lost are still to this day not fully recovered. Like just the pure number of jobs. It did unlock like a different kind of, you know, job, like you're pointing out, like we were more free to do cognitive labor, but in my opinion, like I don't know what it's hard for me to see what else there is.
That's why
But
I'm
maybe
saying
you're right.
it's
Maybe
like, there's
Right.
no area really
We
to
didn't
move in, I
know
would say.
Hard to know the future.
It's hard to know the future, but
But yeah,
Well,
I think I'm saying there's no like logical like
yeah.
transition.
just imagine like if there was, and I'm not claiming that GPT-4 or any form of GPT will ever be this, but just imagine we had like a legit general intelligence AI. There is definitionally nothing that we could do for work that would like a general AI couldn't do, right? That's like the definition of general AI.
Well, like, okay, going back to my key takeaways here. Why are we so obsessed with like making ourselves work and always work more? God damn it. Can't we just like have something that like makes material wealth and then we figure out how to fucking distribute it?
Okay, yeah, but that, right, I mean, I agree, that would be cool, but the problem is, in the past, there hasn't been like an oracle that we can get material wealth from, right?
Also, I don't even think that works, because even if we did that, then we would just exploit the shit out of the world and keep populating it, and then eventually we'll run out of shit to yank out of the
Well,
ground.
until we expand
Would you blame that
to,
on
solar systems.
human nature or capitalism? This like work.
I think everything, you know, everything is an affectation of human nature, but
Right, but if we destroy capitalism and put something else in place. would you
Oh, I
say
don't
that
think we
would
will
fix
do
the issue?
that. I don't think,
What would
we-
that fix the issue? Of this work.
I don't think we, like, is that even a question? Does that question exist? If I don't think it's possible to achieve, does it, does the question exist?
I mean, there's places. where that-
Yeah,
So
okay,
in China, are they like workaholics as well? Actually.
yes.
Oh, okay.
From my, I don't know, Andre, you wanna weigh in?
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
a thing called 996, which is 9 AM to 9 PM, 6 days a week.
And they have like had cram school, like my friend who grew up there, he's like, so after you get out of school, go to cram school, which is just more school till, and at some point you eat, but then you just have more school, or then you have homework. So it's like school from after school till dinner and then,
Yeah.
but it's not like for little kids, it's like for all like high school, it's kind of crazy. He said that they like banned cram school recently.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe, yeah, so your point, yeah, it's happened, communist
Mhm.
revolutions have happened, but
No, but
They're
then
not
your
really-
point- Your point stands too, but this work.
they're not better, like. And that's just, in my opinion, also a
What's
human
not better?
nature thing. All the replacements that we've come up with are all,
What, for capitalism?
yeah, all systems of governance, they're just. Can't really point to one and say like, that's the one that was good.
Hmm.
The more history I learn, it's like. I don't know.
So you don't think communism is the answer anymore, or what?
I never thought it was the answer.
Oh, I thought you had.
No, I think.
thought you called yourself a communist.
I might have done that, but probably joking. Andre calls me a communist a lot.
What?
You call me a communist all the time.
Do
Oh, my
Is there
fucking
an
computer's gonna die. Okay, well, I'm gonna stop this and shut my computer down before it dies.
I might have to get